more on the conclusion of the U.S.-Iran indirect technical talks in Doha. We are joined by geopolitical analyst Ms. Jelena Novakov, live from Belgrade, Serbia. Thank you, Ms. Novakov, for joining us. So, Ms. Jelena, Qatar says the Doha technical talks made positive progress, particularly on shipping security and the release of frozen Iranian assets. So how significant do you think is the breakthrough in the broader U.S.-Iran diplomatic process?
I would refrain from calling it a breakthrough because, first of all, we don't know exactly what it was agreed upon. I do suspect that, given that these are, as they call the technical talks, without any higher level officials present, that what was established is that they will refrain from further strikes and potentially just keep passage through the Strait of Hormuz safe. Any other agreements on tolls that Iran announced, as well as everything else that can be contentious, is probably going to be left for some other time. So I think these talks in Doha were basically just to keep the momentum going and to keep that communication line open after the setbacks of the last week.
So nuclear issues were reportedly deferred while maritime security and financial matters took priority. So what does this suggest, do you think, about the negotiating strategy of both Washington and Tehran?
I think they are focusing on, as I mentioned before, first keeping communication lines open, but this signifies that they are going to start negotiating about things that they are more likely to find some sort of a middle ground on, and then leave more difficult discussions at primarily access to nuclear sites and the uranium enrichment for later. That also refers to the International Atomic Agency's presence in Iran, which I suspect, even if at the end the agency does gain access to certain nuclear sites in Iran, we will not still be able to know how much of the enriched uranium has been preserved or the locations of that storage or those storages. So I think that will probably be the most difficult part to negotiate, as we see frozen funds and the Strait of Hormuz are maybe on the easier side of these negotiations, even though there are probably disagreements there as well, especially when it comes to the toll that Iran wants to impose. What we've heard in these previous days is that there have been talks about the Strait of Hormuz between the Gulf states, between themselves, and then with Iran, and also there are plans with Iran and Oman to start charging not necessarily for the passage itself, but for security inspection, etc. So that is also probably going to be something that the United States are going to try to push back on, even though this is kind of on the easier side of these negotiation talks.
And Jelena, Iran says that its discussions with Pakistani and Qatari mediators focused on the alleged U.S. Violation of the MOU. So while also barring IAEA inspectors from bombed nuclear sites. So how these developments affect trust between the two sides, do you think?
I think that trust is quite low, especially after last week. I mean, even during the talks in Switzerland, right? They were interrupted after Trump's tweets. So even back then, just after the signing of the memorandum, the trust was quite low, and now it's probably at a minimum. And I think what we're seeing from the highest leadership in Iran is that they are expressing doubts over the memorandum, and I think that also we can also see that with the presence of lower level officials during these talks on the Iranian side. I think the main goal of Iran, but it's something that is also in the United States' best interest, is to just refrain from further attacks, so that transit through the Strait of Hormuz, even though it's limited right now, can continue to happen and then eventually increase as the mines are cleaned.
And Pakistani Foreign Office says that both Iran and the US have indeed agreed to continue the talks. So how important do you think has the mediation role of Pakistan and Qatar become in sustaining this diplomatic process?
Right. I think Pakistan and some other Gulf states, including Qatar, are in a good position to play this mediation role. I do think there is a difference between Qatar playing a negotiator, because Qatar does have its own interest here. Qatar has also given, let's say, donations to Jared Kushner's affinity partners firm. Prior to this, we have also seen that Qatar has given Trump new Air Force One. So there is a certain conflict of interest when it comes to Qatar. Pakistan, on the other hand, does have that unique position and doesn't have that that immediate interest like Qatar or any other Gulf states does. So while Pakistan has done an excellent job, I think a higher involvement of Pakistani officials in this agreement would probably lead to a fair conclusion of this negotiation process.
And Jelena, looking ahead, do you believe that these technical talks can evolve into a broader political agreement, and or do unresolved issues, particularly the nuclear file in question and verification mechanisms, still pose major obstacles?
Right, you said it correctly. Those are major obstacles. That's something that's been a problem for years now, right? Ever since Trump first left the nuclear agreement with Iran. What I suspect is that this is not going to be over in 60 days. We have heard from the American side that they have expressed willingness to expand this 60-day arrangement, because I think it's becoming increasingly obvious to both sides and the mediators as well that this is going to take longer than 60 days, given that we have had an interruption in high-level talks. And these technical talks are symbolic at best, just to see that conversation is still going. We will see then, hopefully, high-level talks next time after the funeral of the Iranian leader. And I think at that point we will see if something in the Iranian high leadership has changed and they are willing to fully get back on the negotiating table.